Buongiorno a tutti, sono Raf. In this video I want to talk about the word ancora, and we will also see the words già and più. These are very common words, but not always easy to use because they can have several meanings. I will go through the various meanings of ancora, and you can find the timestamps below if you want to go straight to a particular section, or of course you can watch the whole video. In general, we can say that ancora indicates some kind of continuity with the past. For example, we could have ho ancora fame. Avevo fame prima, ho ancora fame adesso. Or we could have Stefano è ancora giovane, or sta ancora piovendo. And we can also notice the position of ancora in these sentences. It goes immediately after the verb, or when we have a compound tense like sta piovendo, we're going to put it between the auxiliary and the main verb. Sta ancora piovendo. The opposite of ancora in this sense is non più. So we can use più, but we have to put it into a negative sentence. And we can take the same examples and make them negative, say the opposite, and we will have non ho più fame. Stefano è ancora giovane, Stefano non è più giovane. Sta ancora piovendo, non piove più. In this last one, I've changed the tense into a normal present tense because it works better in this sentence. And talking about tenses, if we want to say all these things in the past tense, we would use the imperfetto. Avevo ancora fame. So for example, you can have a sentence like ho ordinato un'altra pizza perché avevo ancora fame. And the same goes for non più. You would say non ho preso il dolce perché non avevo più fame. So with non più, the structure is non verb più. And that means not anymore. So you stop something that was going on. Something was going on before and not anymore now. Next, we're going to put ancora into a negative sentence. And we will have sentences like non ho ancora fatto colazione. Or we could have il film non è ancora cominciato. And we can notice a couple of things here. First of all, we changed the tense. We're using a passato prossimo. And with a passato prossimo, the structure is going to be non, auxiliary, ancora, past participle. Non ho ancora fatto colazione. And the same for questions. Non hai ancora finito. So we'll have non, hai, the auxiliary, ancora, and then finito, the past participle. Passato prossimo is very common with this meaning of ancora, but we could also have other tenses. For example, we could have the present tense, as we can see in this example, which is from an interview to Antonella Clerici, a TV presenter. She says, parto con la dieta perché non ho ancora fame. So in this case, we have a present tense, non ho ancora fame, and the structure is non verb ancora. I'm not hungry yet. But the most common tense is definitely the passato prossimo. Now, if we want to say the opposite, we're going to use the word già this time. And we can use the same sentences. Non ho ancora fatto colazione becomes ho già fatto colazione. Il film non è ancora cominciato, il film è già cominciato. And the same for a question. Non hai ancora finito? Hai già finito? So in these sentences, we could translate già with already in English, and we can see the structure hasn't changed. We've just removed non because we don't have a negative sentence anymore, and we put già in the same position. So between the auxiliary and the past participle. Or if we have a present tense, non ho ancora fame, ho già fame, we're going to put già immediately after the verb. Next, we're going to see how to use ancora when we want to say again. And we can have it in sentences like, oh no, ancora lui. But things are not always very clear, because in English there's a very clear distinction between again and still. We can look at this sports title. He's injured again, or he's still injured. And these two sentences mean two different things. But in Italian, there can be some confusion. Let's take a look at these sport titles. Milik è ancora infortunato. Infortunato means injured, by the way. So the first one is Milik è ancora infortunato. The second, Smalling è ancora infortunato. They are exactly the same. Okay, the player is different, but the titles are very similar. They are the same sentences. But the thing is, they mean two different things. And how do we know? Well, if we read a little bit of the actual article, we can see in the first one, Milik è ancora infortunato, it says, Milik si era fermato per un affaticamento muscolare prima dell'amichevole contro il Barcellona e non è ancora tornato. So he got injured before a friendly game and he hasn't come back yet. So we can guess that in this case the title Milik è ancora infortunato means he is still injured. But now if we look at the second article with a very similar title, Chris Smalling si è infortunato ancora una volta. Questo è addirittura il 10° stop dell'inglese da quando è alla Roma. The second title then means he's injured again, and it is made very clear in the article because it says ancora una volta and then it adds è il 10° stop da quando è alla Roma. So we have the same structure and two different meanings, and there are a couple of things we can do to avoid this ambiguity. There's nothing we can do about the first one, so if we want to say he's still injured, we can only say è ancora infortunato. But if we want to say he's injured again, there are a couple of things that we can do. The first one, when possible, we can change the verb. For example, in this case, instead of saying è ancora infortunato, we could say si è ancora infortunato, using the reflexive verb infortunarsi. Basically, instead of saying he's injured again, we are saying he got injured again. Si è ancora infortunato. Or the second thing that we can do, even easier, we can replace ancora with di nuovo. And we can say è infortunato di nuovo. Or of course we can also change the verb and change ancora into di nuovo, and we would have si è infortunato di nuovo. In this case, there's no ambiguity. È infortunato di nuovo means he's injured again. Or si è infortunato di nuovo, he got injured again. But if you see ancora in sentences like this, you need to be aware that they can mean two different things. Next, we can see ancora in sentences where it means more. This is actually very similar to the first meaning we've considered, where it means still, but is just slightly different. For example, you finished your pasta, your bowl is empty, and I can ask you, vuoi ancora pasta? Do you want more? Very often, in these cases, instead of repeating or saying the word pasta, I would use ne, and I would ask you, ne vuoi ancora? But one thing I cannot say is vuoi ancora. Either I say the word pasta or I put ne before the verb, but not without anything. It doesn't quite work in Italian like it works in English. Do you want more? So I can either say vuoi ancora pasta or ne vuoi ancora. Another use of ancora with this meaning very similar, although probably in English it has a different translation, is if we're doing the shopping list and I ask, c'è ancora pasta? Is there any pasta left? C'è ancora pasta? And in this case, you can answer sì, ce n'è ancora, or no, non ce n'è più. Again, using ne to replace pasta. The last meaning I want to mention is ancora in the sense of even more or even less. So in this case, we will have ancora più, ancora meno. Like in the sentence, è ancora più grande di quanto pensassi. It is even bigger than I thought. Pensassi is an imperfect subjunctive. So in this case, we have ancora più. And of course, we can have similar sentences with ancora meno. Now, that doesn't mean that ancora always means even, because in other sentences like even I understand this, we can't use ancora. That wouldn't work in this sentence. In a sentence like even I understand this, we have to use the word perfino or persino. Perfino, persino are the same word. You can spell it with an F or you can spell it with an S. It doesn't matter. So in this case, we will have persino io lo capisco. Even I understand this. And this is all for the word ancora. I hope you find this useful. Se vi è piaciuto il video, lasciatemi un bel commento in italiano o lasciatemi un like e se volete potete iscrivervi al canale. Ciao e buona settimana a tutti.